Well, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about increasing your conversion rates specifically on your mobile site, even though it says even on your mobile site. So the point of this is how to do or have mobile conversions. So lately, I've noticed something, and let me preface this talk today with something I've noticed. In speaking with a number of clients and some prospects, I'm looking at their website and I'm suggesting, well, we should do this, this, and this, whatever those are. And then they say something along the lines of, yeah, we agree with you completely. And that's been happening over and over and over again, which begs the question, if you agree with me completely, why didn't you do those things before, right? What stopped you from doing them before? And sometimes people don't take action on even the things that are most obvious to them. So why do I bring this up? So today, in putting this presentation together for you, I started thinking about some of the things that might seem a little obvious. And what I would ask is that you don't dismiss some of these things as obvious and say, yes, I already know that. Ask yourselves, okay, I do know that. Why haven't I potentially taken that into account when I've been working on my mobile site or on my mobile app, right? So we're going to start with one of the pillars of conversion, which is user intent, who's coming to the sites. And so there's going to be some obvious things in here, including some stats. All right. So understanding mobile usage. The first thing is you really have to understand why people are coming to your site. Now, interestingly enough, with mobile, it's ubiquitous. It's people live and die by it. I mean, how many times have you been to a restaurant? You see families sitting there all on their mobile device, right? That's what people do now. That doesn't make it right, but that is the world that we live in. So with that in mind, in looking at some statistics, and I look at mobile user usage in the United States, this is what did people do in the last 4 weeks, in the last month. What did they use their mobile for? And number one was social networks. Okay. And websites, okay, search engines, chat, messaging. By the way, this list went down to all sorts of things, right? There was sports on the list, all sorts of things on here. But what's interesting about this is when you look at the list of how people are using their mobile devices, and it says websites and apps used, right? A lot of these things turn out to be mostly app-based. So when we look at this next slide, this is a very telling slide. If you look at the amount of time people spend in an app versus the amount of time they spend in a browser, that difference is huge. And so average daily time spent in the US, 4 hours? I mean, seriously, 4 hours, on your phone, just doing whatever you're doing, right? But most of that is in an app, and that actually makes more sense. We're chatting, we're on Facebook or some other type of social media. We are reading the news. We are, watching YouTube or maybe Netflix or whatever we're doing, right? But the difference between the time spent, in a web browser versus in an app is very significant. So let's go a step further. When we look at mobile usage worldwide, all right, you can see that mobile now, and this is in the past month, has outperformed, excuse me, desktop usage, right? And that's worldwide. But in the United States, desktop is slightly ahead of mobile. Again, this is last month. So we then have to ask ourselves, well, why is it different? Well, it's different because in some countries, and depending upon where your market is and who you're selling to or marketing to or whatever you're doing, some of those people might not have anything other than, a mobile device. So if you look at, China or India, United States, different countries have different usage. And I'll go a step further in that And I know this all seems obvious, but if you really want to understand who you're marketing to and what their intent is, you really got to dig a little bit deeper than just saying, oh, I need a nice mobile website, or I need a responsive mobile website. You really got to figure out, why are they coming? Do they have other choices? And what is their user intent? So if I go a step further here, and we looked at, again, back in the United States, smartphone dependency by age, excuse me, and you'll see that, these are people who don't use basically a home computer, right? They're using smartphones. And you'll notice that, that number is going up, at least in the plus 65 age. And the others, there was a peak, in 2018. And then there are more people starting to use, broadband at home, right? And I also did searches on statistics based on everything from income levels to race, to urban versus suburban dwellers. And so the more you know about your visitors and who they are, the better off you're going to be. All right. So that just kind of sets the stage for all of this. Let's go a step further now. And we need to talk about user intent on mobile devices. So what do they do? I'll admit, this is me a lot of times. Okay, killing time. You're just sitting there. You're using your phone. I mean, I'll admit, I play games on my phone. My number one game, and not that you all need to know this, is Pinochle on my phone, right? But when I take a break, I just sit there, I play Pinochle. And so, why do we do this? We're killing time, we're bored, we're fidgety, and so on. But if we're trying to get those people, and assuming they're not in an app, because if they're in the app, you're not going to be able to interrupt them. But if they're on a website and they're just scrolling and surfing and whatever, for conversions, you actually need to interrupt the user. So user intent on mobile a little further. Some people use this as a primary device for browsing. It might be because they don't even have access to a desktop, or it's their primary device. So for example, we once had a conversation with a company who their demographic was men 18 to 24, and their traffic was like 98% mobile. And what they did is they were primarily marketing car mechanic school to young men who wanted to become car mechanics, right? And so those people typically did not have access to a computer, and they were using their cell phones or their smartphones as their only device. All right. Secondary device. There's other people that use it to potentially shop or do something, and then they switch back to a laptop and they go back and forth, right? So, and there's two ways of looking at this. Some people could be in front of their TV, they see an ad, where they're thinking about something, they're looking at it on their scanning and they're doing some research, but then they go and buy on their computer. And sometimes the reverse could be true. And I'll give an example of where I've done this and other people have done this, where you are, deciding what you want to buy or do, and you go into your app on your phone and you buy a new book, you buy something from Amazon because they've got an app, so the user intent can switch depending upon the demographics of the audience. All right, so the other thing that is really keen or clear for a lot of mobile users, and we see this in a lot of home repair, or something that's imminent, and they need something fixed, like they've had a flood in their house, they've had a car accident maybe, or something where the user intent is immediate, and so they're looking and they need to click the call and they need to get that situation solved. They could be traveling, they could be doing whatever, and they need to know where the nearest gas station is. They need to know where the nearest hospital is. They need to know how to rent a tuxedo because they got invited to something and they're on a business trip, or they were on a business trip and they spilled something on their one and only white shirt, right? Or they ripped their dress or whatever it is, and they need something new. Okay. So urgent needs, they're out and about and they use the phone. All right. So with that in mind, how do you optimize a website for mobile? Now, let's start with the basics. We're going to talk about apps in a minute too, but we're going to start with websites. So number one issue, and I've actually turned we've actually turned people away who wanted to work with us because their website was slow, and we could make it the most wonderful looking website with all these conversion elements on it and all this good stuff. But if the website is slow and it doesn't load, people don't have the patience for that, and they're going to leave. And not only that, they're going to get penalized by Google, and they're going to lose a lot of Google love. And so Google's rankings for you, both for the quality score for your ads, as well as your positions in the SERPs, okay, all of that will hurt. So number one thing, forget anything else. If your website is slow, well, and that's true, by the way, both on desktop and mobile, but it's a lot easier to be slow on mobile. So if your website is slow, then you can actually leave this meeting now, go and work on getting your website faster. That is absolutely the number one thing you need to do. All right. End of story. Now, assuming that your website is reasonably quick, what do you need to do? Well, shorten your content. So here's an example, and I threw this up just because I got a kick out of it. So this is an example of a pastor who goes into biker bars, believe it or not, and preaches the gospel in biker bars. And prior to having a website like this, he had a fair number of people coming. But when he updated the site to look like this, where we shortened the content and made it really easy, it increased his attendance the week afterwards by like 400%. I mean, it was just nuts. And his contributions, from the people, more than doubled online. So by making it shorter and easy to read and get your point across, it really makes the mobile website much easier to understand. Another example is, and when you scroll down on his page a little bit further, is by breaking your content into smaller chunks and adding images, because we're visual, in nature. By adding these images and making it what we call chunkable here, it's really easy for people to be able to figure out what they want to engage with. Do they want to know, where the services are? Do they want to know, what happens at these services? All of these things. And so these visual clues, and you'll notice that there's some nice images in the background. The words pop off there. It's really big. It's easy to click on. And this all contributed to the increase in attendance and everything else, that all the goodness that happened for them. And again, it's basically making this really, really easy to be able to understand and navigate. I'm going to say something else. I'm going to digress for a minute. Not all phones are the same. I actually had a slide, but I took it out, about the different types of screen resolutions, and so, some have really clear resolutions, some have smaller screens, there's still a wide range. So not only are all the mobile devices different, but all the people are different. I mean, even with my glasses, these are bifocals, all right, even with my glasses, sometimes it's hard to read a website. But a really good website, and like this one here, without my glasses, I don't need the bifocals. I can actually read this and accomplish what it is I wanted to accomplish on that site. So when you're thinking about these things, keep in mind, again, not all phones are the same, not all people are the same. So what they can see or not see is a little bit different. All right, pretty straightforward stuff so far. All right. Be aware of the layout. All right. And so, a lot of times what we've seen, and this goes contrary to what people say they're going to do, but a lot of times what we see is their desktop website looks really nice, but their mobile website doesn't. And people say, well, we did a mobile first design. And then I look at these designs, I go, you couldn't have possibly have done a mobile first design. It doesn't look good. And so, the layout on a mobile device really takes a lot more thought. You can get away with things. I mean, this sounds terrible, but you can get away with things on a desktop that you just cannot get away with on a mobile device. So on this next slide, and I'm going to preempt the slide a little bit. On this next slide is a website, their mobile version of a page. And I've used this page before in the desktop to illustrate how to really have a high converting page. This on desktop kills it. It has done an amazing job for these people. But when I show you their mobile version, it completely misses the mark. So let's go here. So this is Blue Bungalow. This looks really good on desktop, but look at the spacing as this thing's starting to scroll here. It almost is as if everything was a second thought when they put this on here. And so the spacing just doesn't look good. And the problem with spacing like this, and the problem with pictures that don't have titles on them, and the problem with something where you're not sure what's coming next on the page, is that you start to wonder, is this broken? Does it look right or not? And if it doesn't look right or feel right to you, then the chances are that you're not going to actually engage with them, fill in your email, buy from them, and so on. Let's contrast that with another one where it was designed for both desktop and mobile, all right? And this looks good. So here we've got a DD214 site, which I've used before, but you'll notice, and while there's some things I might do a little bit differently, you'll notice that the spacing looks better. The things are, the content is chunked, correctly. It makes it a lot easier for people to see what they need to do, where they do it, the buttons to click, and so on, all right? And that's the difference between when you take a design that was designed for, desktop versus mobile first, and really spend the time and effort to get the spacing correct on your mobile device. So that's kind of the main difference. I tend to answer questions in the middle. So Jose asked a question on here, and I think he's saying, think about short content and devices. Would you recommend different contents for mobile and desktop, and how to optimize for search engines with such shallow contents? All right, so yeah, let's start with, I do recommend different content for mobile and desktop, because you want to have the content that matches the user intent. Now, on the question on for search engines, is Google is indexing on the mobile version. So I'm not saying the content isn't all there, but it might be designed differently, that you've got more chunkable pieces, and that the more detailed content could be on other pages, so that it's there, but it's in different places potentially. And that's the difference between a website that is just responsive, where it's either desktop or mobile, and it just shrinks, right? Versus an adaptive website where it adapts to the device that's on, and shows or does not show different content, and so and potentially even different paths. All right, hopefully that answers your question, Jose. But yeah, you want to make sure that the content that you're providing on the website is suitable for the device that it's on. All right, here's another example of something that's adaptive. So you can go to this restaurant here, okay, on the desktop on the left, or you can see the mobile on the right. So user intent is different. So if I am potentially on my desktop, I'm probably thinking about, where do I want to go tonight? Maybe I'm looking for ideas for taking the family out to dinner. But if I'm on my mobile, I might want to know, okay, can I call them? Can I order online? My thought process on what I want to do, and my user intent on what I want to do on this website could be different. And so here's an example of a difference between a desktop and a mobile, which also goes back to Jose's question. All right. A little further, we talk about this all the time. Phone number. Having a phone number, so it's click to call with the icon. Is great, but it's a trust symbol, and you really want it to be able to have a click to call. And for those of you who say, well, but we really don't want phone calls. Well, I understand that, but having click to call will increase your conversion rates because real companies have a phone number and are easy to contact. And if you really aren't set up for phone calls, at least have it go to a really nice voicemail system where you provide lots of love to the people who call in and make it useful versus if you were like calling the cable company. We've all done that, right? And you just want to bang your head against the wall. So you want to make sure that you display your contact details in a way that makes it easy for people to get to you and click to call. All right. Videos. So I'll admit I do this. I mean, maybe none of you do this, but I mean, I actually look at LinkedIn and Facebook primarily on my phone and in their apps, right? And I'm watching videos. We are trained now to watch videos on a mobile device, and so videos play very nicely on a mobile device, and by using videos that don't automatically play, by the way, okay, but by letting the user be in control, we're already predisposed to watching video content. Facebook and LinkedIn has absolutely done that for us. So has YouTube. All right. And so having a website with videos, and videos do help conversions, as long as your video actually adds value. Now, in fairness, I see a lot of videos where people put videos up, and I had this discussion yesterday, I think it was. I said, well, what are you hoping somebody would learn in this video? And they're like, well, I just wanted them to meet me. Why? What's in it for, like the visitor? What's the benefit to that? So having a video on your site just for the sake of a video doesn't make sense, but having a video on your mobile that actually adds value to the visitor absolutely makes a ton of sense. And so we encourage you to have videos, but not just on your mobile, well, obviously on your desktop too, but again, make sure that the video adds value, okay? Be mindful of the size of the buttons, okay? Buttons, you've got to have enough spacing between the buttons. I mean, some people are fat fingered, right? And no disrespect meant to anybody, but I've clicked the wrong thing many a time on a website because the buttons were too close together or they weren't big enough. So you want to make sure that they're easy to find. You want to make sure that people know it's a button, right? I mean, sometimes buttons don't even look like buttons on websites, right? So you want to make sure that it looks like a button, that it's easy to click, and when you click it, it does what you expect them to do. So buttons and the sizes of buttons absolutely matter, on a mobile. Now, the size of a button matters on a desktop too. But for example, you're not going to have like a button that goes across the width of a desktop, but you are going to have a button that is probably 80% of the width, potentially 85, 75% of the width on a mobile device to make it easy for someone to be able to click that button. Conversion elements on page. Now, this is an example of what a well-designed mobile website looks like. So this is Bill and Arrow. You'll notice the phone is in the top right-hand corner on there. They're talking about how easy it is to play, right? Download, they say, what do you do? Download our app, set up an account, make a deposit. So what's on here that makes this interesting? All right, what makes this conversion oriented? There's trust elements on here to make the visitor feel safe. Phone number, logos, and a proof statement. Now, the proof statement is actually the check at the bottom. All right, so that's the proof statement that you set up an account and you could potentially, win money back. Right, and so there's more pages to this website, but on this one page where they're wanting them to take action, it's easy to read and easy to understand. Clear benefits, and it also invokes fear of missing out, right? There's 5 days, 4 hours, 23 minutes, and 34 seconds until the next drawing. So if you basically don't set up your account, you're out of luck, right? And so fear of missing out, clear benefits on here, and then easy to find and click CTA. So this is an example of a mobile design that is really clear, really easy to navigate, makes it easy to read, and I know what is expected of me. And so if this is something that I was interested in, this makes it very, very easy for me to take action and be willing to potentially start the process. Okay. So mobile app versus mobile website. So, here's a question for you, and there's a few questions in here. When should you have a mobile app versus a mobile website? Well, let me just cheat. No matter what, you need a mobile website. So it's not a versus. It's more of a in addition to. Okay, because everybody's first stop is going to be let me look at your website. And then if they look at download of an app, they might go to the App Store or the Play Store, to figure out, do you have an app or not? All right. So it's not just one size fits all. It's when do you use them? All right. So a mobile website, basically, they are an extension of a desktop, but we really talk about an adaptable version as opposed to just a responsive version. Okay. A mobile app, on the other hand, they're developed separately, and there's coding involved, and it's even more or less one size fits all, because you have to create code for these things, where a lot of the websites between all the technology behind the scenes. Yeah, and we all know websites go badly. We've all seen them, right? But if you design the website correctly, it pretty much displays everywhere somewhat consistently, versus a mobile app, you've got multiple code bases. Okay, so what are the advantages of having a mobile website? All right, here. Well, mobile websites don't need customization per operating system. You don't need to develop on your website a version for an Android or a version for an iPhone or whatever else, or the old Windows Phone, if anyone still has one of those. Okay, so it's compatible across all of these different platforms. Mobile websites are found in search results. If somebody's searching on Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo or wherever they're searching, they're going to find they're potentially going to find your website. All right. They're probably not going to find your app as listed as one of the top results. Right. So, a website gets yourself known. That's where your presence starts. Fair enough? You don't have to upgrade them. You don't have to update it. I mean, you should update your website, but you're not doing it because something's changed and there's new versions of the operating system, and there's new, iOS did this and Apple did that, and it's just not the same kind of urgency for having things suddenly just stop working. I've had apps, and maybe you've had this experience too, but I've had apps that I really liked on my phone, and they just stopped working because the developer, for whatever reason, didn't update it in time, or didn't agree with their policy, or whatever happened. And now it's like, well, that doesn't work anymore. I got to go find a replacement app. And I can tell you that's just rather annoying. Mobile websites have a wider reach, okay? So people can find it a lot easier, as we talked about. It's certainly a lot less expensive to design a website than it is to create apps from scratch. So depending upon and now there are systems out there to let you create, budget apps. And if you're doing something really simple, I suppose that's okay. But we're going to talk about the pluses and minuses of apps in a minute. And so some of those simple solutions aren't really that good a process. All right. So what are the advantages of a mobile app? Well, you can personalize an app for that's specific to, that user and what that user is trying to do. You have more control in the app, because it can take advantage of much more personalization. It can add push notifications. We all get these on our phones. I mean, heck, you miss a call. That's the call. Your phone is an app itself, and says you missed a call. You've got a voicemail waiting. You've got chat messages. You've got emails. These are all push notifications. And depending upon the app, which you may turn on or turn off the push notifications. But if you've got an app that somebody really likes, and they're getting value out of it, they'll leave the push notifications on, which means you have a way to reach out to them, which is, potentially not that disruptive or annoying. Okay. There's also in-app notifications. When things change, you're communicating directly with your visitor and or your user. And of course, if you've got something where there's regular use over and over again, then this is something that really makes it easy for that visitor or that user to work with you over and over and over again. And there's all sorts of examples of these types of mobile apps. So apps are ideal, in something like dating, gaming, social media. People can save their preferences, in here. And this is where it starts to get interesting. They can add additional content to here. They can get offline content. So even if you are one of the apps that I used, just as an aside, when I travel, I like to, and I'm in a new city somewhere, and I'm not familiar with the city, I download the city guides onto my phone, because what if, for whatever reason, I'm in a dead spot or whatever, and I want to be able to look at it. Or if I'm on the plane and I'm not connected to the plane's Wi-Fi, and I want to plan on, where I'm going to go when I land in the city. All right. And no need to log in every time, because there's security features that can automatically, log you into that, so you're not remembering passwords. So where would an app work best? Where's the best place for these types of apps? Okay. So Ivan's asked a question about FOMO. Ivan, buddy, interestingly enough, okay, I'm going to answer that question in a few slides from now. All right. So you beat me to it by like minutes. All right. So bear with me, Ivan. All right. So where would an app work best? Banking apps are kind of obvious. All right. And, I showed, Bill and Arrow. That was a version of a banking app, or well, that was their website. I'll show you their banking app in a minute. Okay. But it's kind of obvious. It's something where it's secure. It's on your phone. It's something that you're checking. You're going to be loyal to your bank. All right. It's not like you're going to be looking from bank to bank to bank. So you have a relationship with the bank. So, you're going to keep going there. Now, for those of you who are e-commerce, have e-commerce websites, okay, I will tell you that e-commerce apps really are a big trend these days. Now, if you're a tiny little website, all right, and no disrespect meant to anybody, but if you don't have a large following, you're not Amazon, you're not Walmart, you're not Target, you're not whoever, right? Your app probably isn't going to do a lot for you. But there have been studies that show that when people use the app to buy things, the conversion rate on an app versus the mobile website is like a 3-to-1 increase in conversion in an app than it is on the website. Now, there's a number of reasons in there, one of which is there's already a loyalty and a trust factor into there. But above and beyond that, all of those onboarding, all of that credit card information, all of your preferences, all of those things that could be, saved in there already are. So, for example, well, this again sounds terrible, but so Domino's Pizza, right? I order Domino's. I don't have to put in my credit card. It knows what store it is. And the pizza gets delivered. Now, do I like Domino's Pizza compared to like some of the other pizza parlors around here? No, there are actually some better pizza, my opinion, no disrespect meant to Domino's or anybody else, but there's other pizza that I like better. But you know what? Domino's has an app, all right? Domino's gets my business because it's a lot easier for me to go, hey, click, 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 done. I even know what kind of pizza I like because I've got it in the saved order. So this is an example of an ordering e-commerce app, and that's why, Amazon's got, like a great app, Walmart's got an app, Target, all of these people where they've got that reach, their conversions go up. And it also creates another level of loyalty. Okay. Obviously music and video apps. Now I'm not suggesting you all create those kind of things, but these are the places where apps do tend to work better. Games. All right. We already know that I play games on my phone. I'm sure some of you do also, but games on an app work really better in a lot of ways than games on the web, because I don't have to be connected. I can just play my game and move on. News. I consume a ton of news, all right? And I consume most of my news now, not on my desktop. I actually consume most of my news on my phone. And it turns out that I'm not alone in that. A lot of people are reading their news on tablets and or phones. And so that is a lot of usage for where the app makes sense, because it's customized. I can even say what kinds of news I'm looking for. It knows what to put in my feed and so on. All right. All right, the dreaded social media. All right, obviously we all know that this is one of the main killers out there. Now we're all probably marketing to people on social media, whether we're marketing on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, whatever it is, we're marketing on here. So we want to interrupt people on that social media to get them to come work for us. But this is part of the process, right? And so. Ivan's asking a second question. What do we think about a horizontal menu bar, scrollable if necessary, instead of a hamburger icon? The hamburger icon, you're always better off working with whatever what people are used to, whatever the standards are. And the hamburger menu has become the standard these days. So, and while there are exceptions to every rule, I would strongly suggest that you consider following the, basically the standards that are out there. Dating apps, again, same concept here. All right. Issues to watch out for apps. Now, here's the thing. Apps are incredibly useful, right? But here's some downsides to these things. So before you all go off and start to decide to do an app, okay? I don't know how many of you have had this, but if your app's not working right on your phone, you're not gonna have any patience for it, right? So, and forget even not working right. If the user experience is frustrating, okay, you're not going to use it. I don't know about you, but I have in my list of apps that I've tried, I don't even know how it must be hundreds of apps, right? But I don't have hundreds and hundreds of apps on my phone. I try something, I look at it, I get frustrated, I move on, I delete it, right? So there's a very low tolerance for apps, because if it's not solving the problem, all you're going to do is annoy people. All right. Ratings and reviews can make or break an app. So, you're downloading from your version of the App Store, Play Store. And if the reviews basically are all thumbs down on this or really low, then just like reviews for restaurants and Yelp and other things. But the issue for apps is those reviews are in your face, okay? Where you might have to look for reviews for a website or for a company in the app stores. Those reviews are front and center, okay? So if you don't have really good reviews, you are in deep trouble, all right? And then, of course, it costs a lot of money. We've been involved in a number of app development projects, and I got to tell you, the number one key to apps, all right, is planning it up front. And I'm going to talk about a few key issues right now, which includes Ivan's question about FOMO. Okay. And so some of the key concepts for a mobile app for conversions, okay, is that you want to simplify the sign-up process by splitting it into small tasks. All right. If something is overwhelming, people are going to get frustrated, especially on a phone. You want to create clear and engaging paths for the user to transact. You want it to be personalized and simple conversational language. You want to add trust and social proof. And then you'll notice, Ivan, I'm talking about use of FOMO when appropriate. Okay. So if it's your question is, when is it manipulative? Well, here's the thing. These people do monthly and quarterly drawings, right? Well, it's just like the Powerball or the lottery, right? Everybody knows that the drawing happens at a certain time, okay? And if as long as what you're doing, is not sleazy and is obviously understandable, then fear of missing out really works well. All right. Another good example of that is like Publishers Clearinghouse. They have those drawings where you can win. Well, there's a countdown to those drawings. All right. That absolutely makes sense. Another example of fear of missing out that we see a lot of times is in another app that I use is in booking flights. Right. So if you're booking a flight and you see that there's only 3 tickets left at that price, or you're looking at, there's only 1 seat left in with the extended leg room, or whatever it is you're looking for, by seeing those things, that fear of missing out and letting people know that they could potentially miss out really is reasonable, versus those things, the fake, what's the word I'm looking for? Those fake sales, like, once in a lifetime deal, ends soon. Really? And you go back to the website, 3 days later, and the same thing's there, and the countdown is now saying it's 3 days later. That's just nonsense. Okay, so you don't want to do, whatever you do really should be reasonable. All right, so you need a clear and simple design, for your apps here. And I'll go a step further. And this is an example of chunking and a sign-up process. So in Bill and Arrow, if you look at this, join Bill and Arrow to save money and win, right? So, and we tried to make this friendly. Hello there, let's create your account. All right, let's get started. You'll notice on here, there is some trust with the FDIC member and then some of their winners. So they're showing proof statements. So I've downloaded the app, and it's now time for me to create my account. So we get started, and you'll notice that, it's get started, which is really, it's really very simple. All right, let's start with your name. And so this is chunking. All right, personal details. And you'll notice we reward people with little words like great. Up in the top, it says great. All right, let's start with your name. And then they continue. And now it's personalized. The person entered Susan. Nice to meet you, Susan. So it's personalized. So by giving people positive reinforcements through the process, it gets people to move through this. And then, nice to meet you, scan my ID. We go through the process. And there's a few more steps in the process. But the point here is that by interacting, by making it a more personal experience, by making it friendly, by giving people positive reinforcement, which, by the way, is things you can do on a website, but it's a heck of a lot easier to do it, in an app, right? And so, and here's the other thing that's a little weird to me. As I used to be a developer, people trust apps more than they trust websites, right? And so, but you're installing code on your phone, right? And so, I always worry about code on my phone or on my device, but whatever. So people trust these, so you can do a little bit more and people feel confident with it. So by optimizing an app, which are a lot of the same issues that you've got on a mobile website, by making it chunkable, by giving people positive reinforcement, by personalizing it, by making the process smooth. Those are the kind of things that actually increase conversions on a mobile app. All right. Now, the key here, and I go back to the very beginning of this presentation, the key here is to truly understand who's coming to your website and who your audience is. Is your audience people who really don't have access to a desktop, right, or a laptop? If they are, then your design needs to keep in mind that they are doing it all potentially on their mobile device, whether it's on a website or it's on an app. If, on the other hand, you know that people are killing time on your website or on your app, you're going to treat those people a little differently. You need to understand your audience. I'll go back to that example I gave about the the people that were selling their program to young men age 18 to 24 who only had a phone, right? They only had a phone, and their traffic was all mobile. Trust me, they had click to call in there. They made it really easy for people to sign up. They made it really easy for people to research it. They did everything they possibly could to make sure that their website, by the way, was as mobile friendly as possible, because if they didn't, they would be dead as a company. There's no other way to put that, right? Their traffic was pure mobile traffic. Now, your traffic may not be pure mobile, but you really need to think hard and long. This goes back to the statement I made early on about what's obvious. You really need to understand who's coming to your company on their phone, and are they coming from on a website, which they should be, or do you have an app? All right. So you need to know what makes sense. And if you've got a big enough reach and you've got a way to lock people in, then a mobile app is absolutely a must-have. But again, if you don't have that kind of reach, then spending money on a mobile app really does not make sense for you. All right. Not meaning to beat a dead horse here. So here's my, for lack of a better term, my final thoughts on this. All right. So you have to have an optimized mobile website. If you don't have an optimized mobile website, like I showed you that example on that page with Blue Bungalow, they've got this most amazing desktop. And on that page that I showed you, it really just didn't look right. All right. And so the issue would be here, make sure that whatever you do on mobile is absolutely optimized. And then if you have a following that makes sense, okay, then you should develop a mobile app in addition. All right, so would you comment on the rather obvious decision? Are mobile apps recommended for B2B companies with limited audiences? So interestingly enough, and so Jose asked that question, if you have a limited audience and they are kind of a one and done with you, like let's say you're selling commercial insurance, or you're doing something, where they come, they become a lead, they do something with you, and then you don't hear from them again, then the answer is no, right? But what if, and so we've got clients where they are very specialized in what they do. They sell industrial components, right? But interestingly enough, their clients stay with them for years and they order more and more industrial components. So an app would be really useful to make it really easy for somebody to be able to, while they're out in the factory floor or wherever they are and they need parts, to be able to go to their phone or their tablet and sign in, because they're now mobile, right? They're not in front of their desk. They're not writing things down and going back on what they need to order, but they're ordering things over and over again. So that would be an example of a B2B client to client, where it would absolutely make sense to have an app for ordering things that they get over and over again. And it doesn't mean that they have like thousands and thousands and thousands of users, but if they've got users that order over and over and over again, then that actually makes a ton of sense. So it is case by case. Not meaning to beat a dead horse, but yes, there are absolutely opportunities for B2B organizations to have mobile apps in addition to a mobile website. All right, so with that in mind, this was from one of the chapters in my book. If we can help you in any way, shape, or form, feel free to schedule a call with us. And of course, I welcome anyone who would like to connect with me on LinkedIn. This session was recorded. And for those of you who have been here, you'll wind up, thank you, Alvin, for the kind words. For those of you who have been here before, you will get the recording. Actually, even if you're new, you get the recording afterwards. And for those of you who missed it, we'll be sending it out to them too. It usually takes a couple days before we send it out. But as always, I want to thank you all very much for your time today. And hopefully I was able to provide, even if it's one thought on something you can do to improve your mobile conversions when you get off of that, then the time here was well spent. Have a great day, and we'll see you again very soon. Thanks. Bye.